The wound is the place where the light enters you.
You can feel the weight, can't you? That kind of exhaustion that no amount of sleep or planned breaks can explain. It's the weariness of someone trying endlessly to hold up a world that was never meant to be controlled. You run, and the ground seems to slip away. You push a little harder, and the body gives in. But what really gave in wasn't your strength. It was your center, that silent point where everything once felt light before it became an obligation. What if your mistake was never a lack of effort, but an excess of it? What if this endless urge to handle everything is exactly what's been pulling you away from everything? There's an invisible line between determination and despair, and you've crossed it so many times that you no longer notice how often you've been pushing the impossible each day. You've learned to fight even when all you really needed was to breathe. Constant effort hides fear. The fear of not being enough, of not being seen, of not deserving the space you occupy. And the more you try to prove you are enough, the further you drift from who you really are. The world taught you that confidence is arrogance and that rest is laziness. But there's a kind of strength that only awakens when you allow yourself to stop. Maybe what you're missing isn't movement, but surrender. Maybe what's missing isn't in what you do, but in how much you resist not doing. Because there's a difference between giving up and trusting, and you've been confusing the two. Trusting is the boldest act of all. It's allowing life to unfold even when you don't understand it. There's a voice inside you that whispers between the pauses, between one thought and another. It asks for silence, but you bury it with noise. It asks for rest, but you drown it in motion. You try to control time, but it's time that's been controlling you. You try to predict the future, but it's your fear of the future that keeps you chained to the past. Everything you've been looking for lives in the space between one breath and the next, and yet that's the space you avoid the most. The exhaustion you feel doesn't come from your body. It comes from denying yourself. When fear sets the rhythm, the soul burns out. You weren't born to fight against the current. You were born to understand the flow. Trusting doesn't mean giving up. It means aligning. It's realizing that the river doesn't need your strength to run. You don't have to push the river. You just need to flow with it. When effort turns into compulsion, chaos begins. But when surrender becomes direction, calm settles in. What you fear losing if you let go may have never been yours to begin with. What truly belongs to you doesn't demand force, only presence. Control is born of fear. Trust is born of peace. It's strange to realize that what you call productivity might just be escape. That what you call focus might be fear of feeling. That what you call effort might be your desperate attempt not to face the emptiness. But emptiness isn't the enemy. It's where the new is born. Not every pause is a loss. Some pauses are preparation. What you call slowness might just be the soul asking for air. Everything real ripens in silence. It's the noise that ages what hasn't yet been born. How many times have you blamed yourself for not being there yet, without realizing that the there you're chasing never existed outside of you? You run in circles, and the circle is the mirror. What exhausts you isn't the distance between where you are and where you want to be. It's the weight of believing you must earn your place here. Trust brings you back to yourself, and when you return, everything shifts. What once felt urgent loses power. What once seemed impossible dissolves. What once felt distant reveals itself within. You think you control life, but it's life that's been watching you, waiting for the moment you'd grow tired of the fight. It doesn't want you to prove anything. It just wants you to feel everything. Fear shouts to protect you. Trust simply breathes. Breathing is the most revolutionary act there is. It's telling the world, I'm here, and that's enough. When the mind quiets, the being awakens. And in that awakening, there's something sacred, not in a religious sense, but in the truth that needs no words. You were taught to equate value with control. But control is only a sophisticated form of fear. Fear wants to guarantee. Trust wants to flow. Fear tightens. Trust releases. Fear builds prisons in the name of safety. Trust opens doors in the name of peace. And maybe what you call stability is just a gilded cage. You think you're in command, but you're merely defending yourself from the unpredictable. And it's in the unpredictable that life truly lives. Then, at some point, something gives. The inner sound changes frequency, and the rigidity starts to melt. You realize that nothing needed to be conquered, only understood. Surrender isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the moment when the heart accepts what the mind can't control. You don't lose control. You lose the weight. You discover that destiny isn't a map to decipher, but a movement to feel. Serenity stops being a distant goal and becomes your very breath. Effort turns to lightness. Fear turns to presence. Everything born from fear wears out. Everything born from trust endures. Forced success collapses. Movement born from calm sustains. What grows out of desperation dies fast. What grows out of peace lasts. Maybe true progress has no sound and no rush. Maybe it's happening right now as you hear these words and feel something shifting, not in the world, but within you. Life doesn't want to be conquered. It wants to be allowed. And every time you release a bit of control, the universe rearranges itself around what truly matters. You are part of the movement, not its master. And everything true within you already knows that. The world doesn't need you to push, it needs you to trust. There's a moment when everything quiets. The body doesn't fight, the mind doesn't demand, and time seems suspended. In that space, truth reveals itself, not as an idea, but as a return. Everything that's been said, everything that burned, weighed, or awakened, folds inward and becomes one single feeling: presence. The listener realizes they weren't watching a story. They were crossing through themselves. The river they once tried to control now carries them, and the current is gentle, almost imperceptible, like the touch of life that never stopped flowing. And then comes recognition. Effort, fear, control. They were all disguised teachers. They taught you trust by exhausting everything that wasn't. Trust, you now see, isn't the absence of doubt, but the courage to keep walking within it. It's moving forward with an open heart, even when the ground hasn't appeared yet. It's knowing that behind every resistance, there's an invitation to surrender. What seemed like weakness was only the body asking to return to the natural rhythm of being. The gaze changes. The world remains the same, but its meaning no longer does. Pauses no longer hurt. Uncertainty no longer weighs. There's beauty in the pause, strength in silence, meaning in the void. Everything that once demanded control now inspires reverence. Life stops being something to conquer and becomes something to feel. And in that feeling, a new kind of power is born. Not the kind that imposes, but the kind that sustains. Not the kind that binds, but the kind that frees. It's as if the soul, after so long trying to prove itself, finally remembers it never had to. The echo of these words remains. It vibrates in your chest, in the pauses between thoughts, in the moments when you begin to breathe slower again. There's no ending, only return. The beginning and the end touch like two sides of the same river. And in the middle of that flow, a quiet certainty settles. Everything is exactly where it's meant to be. Not because it was planned, but because it was allowed. Life no longer needs to be pushed. It can finally be lived. And if something inside you woke up, even if you can't name it yet, it's because a part of you recognized the call. May that voice keep echoing beyond words, in your gestures, your choices, your days to come. If this moment touched you, don't let it fade into silence. Share it. Spread what you felt. Because what transforms within you can transform someone else too. Like, comment, subscribe, not as someone following a channel, but as someone choosing to follow their own flow. Because maybe now, you already know, what's born from trust endures.